cartel that operated in one of these Algerian neighborhoods in the outskirts or suburbs of Paris.
Yeah, I think that what Jim Bitterman was talking about in terms of some of the neighborhoods on the outskirts of Paris is fascinating and gets to some of the underlying reasons why young Muslim men in France have been radicalized. Because, for example, in France is a very secular tradition. There's a sharp division between church and state. Yet at the same time, the Muslim population within France has exploded over the course of the last 15 to 20 years. And it is very difficult for people who come traditionally from North Africa, like Algeria, to integrate within French society and really establish themselves. It's difficult for young Muslims who cannot be seen to practice their religion quite as openly as they would in North Africa. France has a long, difficult history with the headscarf issue for women, and there are other symbols that make it very difficult for young Muslims to get jobs, to get university degrees, and so they often seek to identify with other groups and are susceptible to this kind of radicalization because they're looking for a way to identify themselves and create an identity.
And Paul, you've talked to us on our air a lot about the fact that there have been arrests in France, in this country that has a very large Muslim population. And we talk about what Jim was just addressing, this notion of disenfranchised youth that have become radicalized. This is such a vulnerable and dangerous population and proposition.
And many of these young kids live in these banlieues, which are sort of run-down suburbs where there are not very good job opportunities. And the ISIS message, the Al-Qaeda message put out through social media has increasingly resonated in these suburbs. We've seen right now there are 400 French nationals who are fighting with various jihadist groups in Syria and Iraq. 200 are considering going, 200 are on their way. 200 are on their way back. There are 5,000 individuals in France that the French are monitoring to varying degrees. This is a huge challenge in France. The French Prime Minister has said the threat is greater than any time from terrorism in the country's extremism. These are worrying times.
Worrying times indeed. Before turning to extremism, Sheriff Kauchi apparently drank beer, smoked marijuana, listened to rap music, had a girlfriend. Some are pointing to this, Jim, as proof that he was pretty secular, but then something shifted and he became radicalized.
Right. So one of the big points in Sheriff Kauchi's radicalization was Abu Ghraib and the torture that the U.S. military perpetuated on some of the prisoners there back in the 2004-2005 timeframe. And this is a big thing. It really speaks to the notion that the United States...
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I want to please pause for a second, because we now have live images of the standoff situation. Obviously, our cameras are at somewhat of a distance, but you can see an awful lot of police personnel. This is the site of the second hostage-taking in France. Compliments of France 2 Network, our affiliate there in France, just outside of Paris. This is this kosher shop that we've been hearing about in Port de Vincennes. Jim Sciutto was telling us it's called Hyper Caché, a kosher shop there. Apparently, there is a hostage standoff. We don't have word how many hostages, but it is believed the shooter involved in Thursday's shooting of the policewoman who later died. That shooter is inside this and surrounded inside this kosher shop with, oh my goodness, you can see the amount of police personnel armed and protected, wearing full military turnout gear. They are there, and it looks as though they are very close to surrounding the area. Reportedly, it's an accomplice, Allison, that we've been hearing about, that this man, they believe, is linked to the pair of brothers that are holed up in their own standoff with police northeast of Paris.
And I'm reading the report now, the bulletin that just came across from Reuters, saying that they believe several people have been taken hostage at this kosher supermarket in eastern Paris. And again, you're seeing the outside and the police presence amassing there, trying to deal with this hostage-taking as well as what's going on in the northern suburb outside of Paris. Let's go back to Chris Cuomo. He, of course, is in Paris at the scene of the original massacre. Chris, what are you hearing on the ground?
All right, Allison, thank you very much. I'm here with Hala Gorani and Alan. Say your last name for me the right way. Bauer. All right, thank you very much. You are a security expert. You understand how the French authorities operate in situations like this, even up to the level of the GIGN SWAT team. We're looking at live picture of what we believe is going on just east of here in what you call the 12th district. They seem to be uniformed police, but what is staging there right now? What is your understanding of this tactic?
First, they are preparing and they are surrounding the place. Second, they will establish contact and negotiate. That's the French way. And afterwards, they will decide if there is a place for negotiation, if there is a place for rendition, or if they have to go and take over the place.
Now, in this tight of a formation, is this a function of obviously just believing that they are within the reach of whatever weapon they assume they're dealing with?
No, they're just waiting to get instruction by the negotiator, who is the most important person in charge.
There's another detachment in front of them that seems more crouched. Again, you think that that's just a safe waiting position?
That's the way they are prepared and wait for instruction by the negotiator, who will take the psychological mood of who he will discuss with, and if there is a discussion, if there's a refusal of discussion, they will try to put some equipment to see and hear what's going on inside, and then they will make their decision. Of course, they have some experience due to the Mera case in Toulouse a few years ago, which is a first try of negotiation that unfortunately gets back and down because Mera never wanted to surrender. But he make it.
He was the man who booby-trapped his own house and took 24 hours, but he was alone without hostages.
Exactly.
Okay, so
But
this is different.
This is different, but it's always a part of experience to know that this type of individuals may want to die under attack, but may want also to get as many publicity as possible and make the show be very long.
The Paris prosecutor's office confirms there are hostages, plural, involved in this situation. Now, one step backwards, we're trying to figure out what this means, and you see the police are backing off the media there. They obviously think they're in a sensitive area of containment. This shooter yesterday was similarly dressed to the terrorists that attacked the offices here where we are at Charlie Hebdo. He shot two officers. One was a female. She was unarmed. She died. But there is no reason to believe that that shooter was either present at this shooting at Charlie Hebdo or is any way related to this plot. But there is reason to believe, Alain, you tell me if this is consistent with your understanding, that the shooter that we're looking at right now in this situation may be related to the men in terms of the organization of their cell. Does that sound right?
I think it's clear that this crew was made of 3 persons, not 2. The point was even highlighted by the Ministry of the Interior at the beginning of the Charlie Hebdo situation. There was a misunderstanding on who may be the third guy.
Right.
But it's clear from the beginning that French authorities knew that there were not 2 but 3 people involved.
You say it is not him. Okay, so he's out of the picture. But there was a third person in this attack, this massacre at Charlie Hebdo. It could or could not be the man involved here, which means you could be dealing with 4 people.
No, we always believe that there will be 3. 2 who attack the building and 1 who may be in charge of the car, which is usually how you organize this type of things, and who may have been able to shoot the policewoman.
But do you believe that the man who is held up now in this kosher market that the police are trying to make their way around there on some slippery ground, do you believe from your information that this man was related to what happened at Charlie Hebdo?
He's related to the crew that was involved in both Charlie Hebdo and the shooting of the policewoman, and now of the 2 standoff in north of Paris and in east of Paris.
Okay, so that's new information for us. We'll stick with that until we hear otherwise. Yes?
I just want to bring to our viewers this information from Agence France Presse. They are reporting, according to their sources, 5 people taken hostage in this kosher supermarket. This isn't something we've confirmed. Agence France-Presse has spoken to police sources. They're getting that number from them. 5 individuals held hostage in this kosher supermarket. Hypermarché is what they call it in France.
Which is consistent with what would be going on in a supermarket, right? If you were to confront somebody in that situation, they would have access, obviously, to a large number of people.
That's what they want to do usually, is to take as many casualties, as many hostages, and as many publicity as possible.
Now, what does it mean to you that this shooter was contacted in this kind of area in the 12th district and in or around a supermarket?
Now, I think the third person was identified and was searched heavily by French police, and as the other two, he just found a perfect place to try to escape or to negotiate or to create attention and maybe, hopefully not, casualties.
And what does it mean that his efforts to escape didn't take him far away from Paris, that he was staying relatively close to the scene of the crime?
Most of those people try to be safe in areas they know and not in areas they don't know. So the first two tried to escape where they were in their first place, Paris, and where they were living in northeast of France, and then on the way back. So it's consistent with usual behavior of those individuals, and this one may be perfectly in his area, in his vicinity, in the eastern Paris.
He may have been, but now he has a lot of trouble coming his way, and rightly so. So this is what's going on right now, just east of us. A man is inside the supermarket. That's a picture of the supermarket there. It is a kosher market. We don't know if that's relevant, but he supposedly has hostages, as many as 5. That is the word from French authorities. Let's now go to the other active situation where the 2 terrorists from the shooting here at the offices of Charlie Hebdo are surrounded and holed up in a industrial area. We have a Tika Schubert there. That's the building the men are inside. It's a big building. Authorities don't know exactly where, but that's the building that they are believed to be inside. A Tika Schubert, what do you know from your vantage point?
Well, we're about 600 meters away from that building. We're right behind the school, which is just about to be evacuated. They've got a bus here, police ready to escort them out. But the plan is to get them out to a neighboring town where parents can then get their kids and bring them to safety. I think the priority is just to get them out of this general area because we are so close to that industrial park. So there's been quite a bit of police activity. It's very quiet. Police have told everyone to stay inside, draw the curtains, and just shut and lock down inside their homes. So that's where it stands at the moment. So far, so quiet.
All right, Atika, thank you very much. We'll keep checking in with you there. Obviously, to the extent it's safe, it's very important to be evacuating those kids. Let them get home to their families. Insulate them from any proximity to the area there. When it ultimately goes down, if the men don't surrender, and they've said they won't, it will be a violent scene. But that's the situation that they've called themselves to by creating this horrible massacre at the offices of Charlie Hebdo. Now, on your screen is this second developing situation right now that is just east of our location here in Paris called District 12. A man who was involved in a separate shooting from the Charlie Hebdo shooting where he killed a female police officer who was unarmed has now been isolated in this kosher market. You're looking at police who are staging there, and we have with us an expert in the different tactics of the French authorities. Alain, what will they do in terms of steps? You said they're going to try and contact this guy, make some kind of dialogue. If dialogue is resisted, then they do otherwise. But how many different teams will you have, and what are the different jobs that are necessary at this point?
Well, first, you just have one team, one coordinated team. As you know, the French National Police is a unified police, and they have 2 different organizations that deal with hostage situations, the RED, which is the French National Police, and GIGN, which is French Gendarmerie. And for the first time ever, they're working together due to the sensitivity of the situation and the gravity of the situation.
Who takes lead?
There is one guy in charge. Whoever it will be the guy in charge on each location.
Okay.
But for the first time, they work together. And at this moment, the negotiator is a principal important guy. He will sense if there is a way to get out, if there is no way to get out, if there is a possibility to negotiate the release of some hostages, women, children. There is none in this case, but it may have happened. And afterwards, he will give an option to the chief of team, and of course, Minister of the Interior, Prime Minister, and maybe President of the Republic may have the choice of options regarding what the negotiation may give or what the non-negotiation may not give.
So those are the conditions. The hostages, we've heard from French authorities that they believe there are as many as 5 hostages inside.
Including women.
Women. Do we know if there are children involved?
At the moment, we know there are women, that's all.
Just so there are women involved in this. And time. How does time work? When is time in favor of the authorities? When does time become an adversary?
Time is always an ally, because you use time to negotiate, to discuss, to create a link, connection, to open options. It's always a very good ally. It's not very well for communication and publicity, which is obviously what some of the criminals want to have, but it's good for the release of the hostage, and it always gives you a better option of saving them from the situation. So time will be a good ally, always.
All right, so we're going to keep monitoring this situation. We have one of our correspondents, Jim Sciutto, who is en route to that location. We have 2 reporters at the second active situation that's going on with a hostage. So we will give you the latest from those. Right now, the situations are developing but quiet, so let me send you back to New York to Allison and Michaela.
Okay, great job, Chris. Thanks so much. Some amazing information and changes coming in this last hour or so. We want to turn for some analysis to Wally Zayans. He's a former NYPD detective and hostage negotiator, 30 years with the NYPD, 22 as a hostage negotiator. You're the man to talk about this very volatile situation in 2 locations in France, that country on edge right now. Help us understand the primary focus right now for those negotiating teams in both situations.
Well, first of all, it's like hostage negotiating is like walking into the middle of a movie. You don't know the beginning and you don't know the end. So you have to work from there. In hostage negotiating, we have 3 negotiators, all interchangeable. That's a hostage team within the inner perimeter. Okay. There's the primary negotiator, there's the coach, and there's the floater. Now, the primary negotiator will be talking to the person and makes the rapport and tries to get as much information from him. At the same time, the coach is more or less taking the notes because he can hear everything that's going on. And they send out a floater who talks with other law enforcement agencies, who talks with family members, and brings it back, and then the coach deciphers it. And all 3 of those negotiators are interchangeable.
Well, I thought it was fascinating you were telling Michaela and me that it's no accident, you believe, that in both these situations they chose a catering company to the north of Paris and they chose a kosher deli or grocery store. Why?
Food. One of the big negotiating tools that people want is they want to have food, and they want to have food brought in. That's something that they don't have to negotiate for. They have a kosher deli. They'll get whatever they need. They'll have drinks there, water, etc. And the other place, they'll have food, because that's an airline catering place where they make food for the airlines. And the interesting part is terrorists work in what they call the theater of terror. Their objective in a case like this is for money, manpower, and media.
Explain those.
Okay. What they want, their theater of terror is set up by the hostage taker is the main actor. The hostage and the police are the,
part players.
Part players. And the media is the production.
Broadcasting system.
Because they're broadcasting it all over the world. Now, what makes it even more interesting is their objective is money, manpower, and media to work for them. There are sympathizers who are out there who want to donate money. There are other people out there who want to join. So having those two locations and being able to have food, they can be there for days.
So now the other disadvantage they have, because you talk about the fact that they'll have ample supply of food, water, beverages, even access to facilities like the restrooms, etc. One thing they don't have on their side, especially for these two brothers, this is what, 48 hours or so on, fatigue. And the police have the advantage there because you have all of those resources. Talk to us about how that works, how they change out and bring in fresh bodies so that they have the advantage of awareness and energy.
In a hostage negotiation, one that's going to be long-term, the person that's negotiating will stay as long as he or she has to stay talking. And if that person has to say, relieve themselves, go to the bathroom, or is tired, they'll introduce a partner and say, hey, listen, because they've already, in the first couple of hours, developed the rapport.
A rapport, which is so important.
Which is the most important thing. And what they'll do is, with trust me, I'm going to go to the bathroom, I'll be right back.
But does that work with terror suspects
Sure, because
the same way as it does with a domestic situation?
Sure, because you've already established a trust factor where they believe in you. And talk to my partner, Frank. Frank's just like me, and they'll bring him in, or they may not want to talk to a man. They may want to talk to a woman. We have, in NYPD, we have every race, creed, and color. And that's basically what will happen. And if the hostage wants to go to sleep, that's even better because we are alleviating deadlines.
Right.
Because if they say, I want to...
All right, thank you very much, Michaela. I want to get to Jim Sciutto right now. He's on the phone with us. He's made his way over there. Jim, can you hear us?
Hearing now a ambulance siren past us. It is rushing away from the scene. I see 3 ambulances. I've just counted now. About 2 minutes ago, I rushing away, police escort. At the same time, we're seeing columns of police vans heading in the direction of this shooting. It has taken place at a place called Hyper Caché. It is market here. AFP is reporting the 5 hostages inside. And Chris, I've just passed someone on a stretcher being let into the ambulance. It's difficult to establish if this is all tied to this shooting, but I'll tell you, Chris, we're very close to it, and we're seeing police going in, and we're seeing...
All right, Jim, here's what we were hearing from here, if it helps with context. We had an expert here who understands French tactics very well in these situations. Our live pictures of 2 different squads that seem somewhat apprehensive. They're in a staging area nearby. He said the primary goal was to establish communication, see if negotiations are an option, that the French authorities do say 5 hostages at least inside. 1 may be a woman inside, does not know about any children. So that's what we know contextually, Jim. I cannot verify for you if what you're seeing with those ambulances are related to the event from the picture and information we have. What else do you see?
Police heading in the direction of where this kosher market is. And keep in mind, the police are keeping us a safe distance, but we're moving closer. But again, police heading in the direction of it and ambulances heading out. The police have not confirmed injuries from this shooting, but there are reports, and I'll tell you the signs of sitting here and seeing these ambulances rush away, police escort. It seems that it's reasonable to make that connection. Keep in mind, just for our viewers back home, imagine the same situation in an American city. You now 2 situations on either side, capital of France, Paris, and you have the police responding. What here, Chris, as you and I discussed already this morning, we're talking about thousands of police responding, but scrambled somewhat. This is they did not know involved for the last 24 hours that he is the same shooter who killed a female police officer yesterday. They have not publicly made a connection between this hostage situation and the one taking place near Charles de Gaulle Airport.
Right. Now, Jim, what we heard from this person with knowledge of the investigation, he says that French authorities do believe that the shooter who has taken hostages at that kosher market where you're nearby right now, they do believe that he is related to the terrorists who attacked Charlie Hebdo 2 days ago and have been the subject, obviously, of the manhunt since then that led them to be isolated in this industrial area east of Paris. However, whether or not that meant he was a party to this attack or was just part of the cell or a friend of or part of the organization, that was not clarified. And again, we'll hold on any reporting that anything that you're seeing there in terms of injuries or ambulance activity is related to the event. We've heard nothing about that. We had heard similar reports about injuries being connected to the other standoff in that industrial area. French authorities came out and said there have been no wounded to date, none dead, killed in this manhunt yet. So let's just hold off and hope for the best. You're seeing canine units. This is from earlier. This is not live picture. This was some of the early staging around that kosher market. They have various different types of assets involved to surround the situation and engage whoever is inside. That's what we've been following here. Jim, how's your connection? Can you still hear us?
I can hear you well, Chris. And just one more thing. We're circling over the scene of this shooting here. And just to point, the connection that police have established between this suspected shooter at the kosher market and the Charlie Hebdo is the suspect apparently suspected of being behind the Charlie Hebdo, as you say, established a connection, but there appears to be a personal connection. They somehow knew each other, planned together. No, we just don't know at this point. But I'll tell you, it's just
right.
You know, the tension in this city as you have forces deployed. France is just really remarkable to watch, and yet at the same time, I'm seeing people walk around. I'm seeing them eating in restaurants. I'm seeing them driving. People keeping their.
All right, Jim, do me a favor. Start sending me some emails and some texts. Let me know what you're seeing from there. The phone connection, not so great. So if you can't get to a hard line or get a better connection, Jim, just start sending me some emails and texts, and we'll get you a better comms line as soon as we can. Let me turn to Hala. Hala, Jim was just making a point that is worth broadening out a little bit before we return to New York. This is a big city. It's a metropolitan city. There are millions of people here living their lives. They've never seen anything like this. To have this type of violence in succession with manhunts and hostages being taken. You live here. What is this like? What is this going to do to kind of affect the collective psyche here?
Right. I lived here, and I lived here in 1995 when there was a series of terrorist attacks against public transport for several days. It reminds me a little bit of that time. 20 years ago, where every single day brought new disturbing news about another violent attack against ordinary civilians. In this case, it's a little bit different in that we, over the last several years, have gotten used to the notion that perhaps there is a threat against Western targets from fighters who may have gone to the Middle East, joined the ranks of ISIS, been trained by Al-Qaeda. In this particular case, we're starting to hear reports that this may be the situation here, although, of course, over the next few days, weeks, and months, all that will become clearer. But yes, this is a very, very surreal scene. I mean, you're seeing in full combat gear hundreds of security forces going door to door in small, sleepy villages
Is
north
it like
of
what we've
Paris.
seen in New York, where there's become this collective acceptance that, hey, this could happen anytime, and we have to do things to combat this? Is that level of recognition
Yes.
in place here?
I think so, and you heard it even from the French president a few hours ago on television, and he had special meetings at the Interior Ministry today saying, look, we've known for some months now that intelligence is pointing toward the possibility of this type of attack. Of course, when it happens, the question is, A, how do you respond? B, longer term, what is your response as a country?
Seeing just not too far from where we're stationed right now, that situation just beginning to unfold, so we'll give you details as we have them. And as Hala is referring, you know, this is Paris today, but as we know all too well back in the States, in New York, everybody is vulnerable. Everybody has to be prepared. So back to you in New York. I know that you have Senator Angus King there.
We do, Chris, and also we just got a bulletin. In fact, the mayor of Paris just tweeted out that she is racing now to the scene of that second standoff to be on hand for whatever unfolds there. Joining us now is Senator Angus King. He's an independent from Maine. He's on the Senate Select Intelligence Committee. Senator, tell us your thoughts as you watch these two hostage standoffs unfold.
Well, I think the first thought is that people in America can identify with and want to express our support and sympathy and encouragement to the people of Paris and the people of France. We've been here. We know what this feels like. It's a violation. It's painful, and I think that's the first thought. The second is I've had intelligence briefings over the last 24 hours. I don't have a great deal of additional information to what you are reporting. You're doing a great job bringing us the minute-to-minute coverage of what's going on. I think the third thing is that there does appear to be a connection between these guys that did this attack and what's called AQAP, the Al-Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula, which is essentially based in Yemen. We know that at least one of them traveled there. We know that there was some training. And this doesn't look like a lone wolf attack. Just the fact that they were carrying AK-47s and not 22s and pistols indicates that this was planned and it's part of some kind of strategy. It's tragic. I'm afraid it's the world that we live in, though, Allison.
Yeah, and this Michaela joined in conversation as well. Senator King, we appreciate it. And you spoke about the intelligence briefings that you've been a part of, and obviously, for security reasons, you can't tell us some of the confidential information that was exchanged there. But maybe you can give us some knowledge and understanding if there is a reevaluation of some of these high priority concerns here on in the U.S.
Well, there is, and you know, this is a case where at least so far, the system worked. The point I'm making is that these two guys were on our no-flies list. So they had been identified. They were being tracked, and that would have made it more difficult for them to get here. But the larger reality is that there's something like 15,000 foreign fighters in Syria and Iraq right now. It's a cauldron of training that these people can then return to their home countries, and this kind of thing is possible. It's one of the reasons people sometimes stop me and say, why are we bothering with the Middle East? Why are we involved over there? Why are we taking these, sending people? And the answer is that if this place doesn't